welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Barjo.
And I'm Hex. This week on the show, Pandemonium with the new WoW expansion. Now, you've taken on this feat all on your lonesome, Barjo.
It's been quite a journey, Hex. Quite a journey indeed.
Redirect the invasion fleet, storm the shore, and paint this new continent red!
Plus, Torchlight is re-illuminated in Torchlight II.
Oh, big spider! Oh, God! Oh,
and we shoot some hoops with NBA 2K13. But first, can you guess the game for this week? Hex, a riddle for you, if you please.
Ooh.
What starts with N and ends in ooze time? It's news time.
Really?
Time to go to the news. Yep. Done a lot of them. Hard to think of interesting ways to say news time after all these years.
Good game!
Several scientists from Texas and Romania have created bots for Unreal Tournament 2004, which arguably behave more human than humans. The bots were created for a competition to build the most human-like AIs. Two teams of players, each made up of half human players and half bots, faced off. Each human player was armed with a judging gun to tag opponents as human or bot. The bot tagged as the most human won. Two bots tied for first place, earning a humanness rating of 52% in the Turing test, which is impressive considering the humans average a score of 42%. According to a declassified military document, an episode of Pokemon inspired the United States military to create a gun that could cause seizures. A 1997 episode of the popular anime featured a sequence of rapid flashing blue and red frames that caused seizures in around 700 viewers. The document added that no tests had been conducted. The military has denied ever developing an EMP seizure ray. And in more science news, a study has shown that playing violent games can make you more resistant to pain. Researchers at Keele University looked at 40 participants playing both violent and non-violent golf games. Participants would play 10 minutes of one of the games and then place their hand into a bucket of ice-cold water. On average, players kept their hands in the water 65% longer after playing the violent game. The researchers linked the phenomenon to separate studies showing swearing also helped alleviate pain, theorizing the added aggression and adrenaline triggers the body's flight or fight response, changing how it perceives pain.
Good game!
Hex, if there's one thing I like about basketball games, it's slamming the dunks.
Slamming the dunks?
Slamming it.
NBA is back again with 2K13, and this time the devs have stepped away from the showcase modes of the previous couple of games.
That's right, this is all about focusing on that core gameplay and polishing that right up, and even though those retro players and teams are still there, what they want here is the most realistic and smoothest basketball sim possible.
Yeah, you really feel the impact of the weight of players, don't you? Those faster, lighter players are a lot easier to move around than those bigger, tougher dudes.
Averaging 22 points a game.
You're definitely affected more by collisions on court, and players will even change up shots if they get knocked in midair. But it's the small details that are really clever, like those mini celebrations after you get a good basket.
Yeah, there's just nice little touches everywhere you look. Each player has individualized dribble and shot styles, and there's a whole bag of new dunk animations. It's not better looking than 2K12, but at least this time there's less repetition in player movements, and it keeps the game dynamic.
It looks kind of sharp and snappy from where I'm standing.
The dribble gameplay has been changed up this time around. Now it's controlled with the right stick, and if you want to shoot, you have to hold down a modifier or use the shot button, and this took some getting used to.
Yeah, there was the odd time where I missed a shot because I was still using the old controls in my head. It actually reminded me a little bit of the old NBA Live controls, and once I got used to it, it felt quite natural.
Yeah, and luckily the game still has a solid tutorial system that'll take you through everything. And it's been streamlined this time so that you can learn moves without having to master previous ones, which I really liked.
I'm sure a lot of fans would have liked to see something similar to Michael Jordan's career or NBA's greatest mode, but for retro heads this year, there's the original 1992 Dream Team featuring Charles Barkley, who's making his first appearance in a video game since the Mega Drive days.
Yes, and the current US Olympic team is included too, but it's weird that they haven't included an Olympic or international mode to take advantage of this. What's weirder still is you can play as Bieber as part of a celebrity team. Never thought I'd see Bieber in a video game.
It's a sad day for all of us.
Here's Bieber. For the last 300 months, I made 16 albums with me on the front.
There's a lot of RPG elements this time around. The in-game virtual currency now replaces XP points. The VC you collect can buy attributes in career mode or customize your player with signature animations and new clothing.
You can even collect VC by playing quick matches, which means the time and effort you spend in one mode can still reward you in another. And it's a great way to keep your achievements across the whole game.
It also works in My Team mode, which is NBA 2K's version of FIFA's Ultimate Team, which is a fantasy mode where you trade players and create your dream team. Also, like FIFA, if you play on Xbox, you can call out simple plays and movements using Kinect voice commands. But it doesn't work that well, it's a bit laggy, and apparently you can get a tech foul by just swearing randomly, but as hard as we tried, we could not get it to recognise any of the swear words we used.
Yeah, that was an awkward one to test around the office.
Yeah. Penis.
Penis.
Cock. Shit.
Vagina.
Vagina. Justin Bieber.
There are also some really unique features buried in there, such as, are you ready for this? 2K13 has its very own sneaker creator.
I got a million ways to get it. Choose one.
You know how much I love Sweet Kicks badge?
They're pretty sweet. Check out my Sweet Kicks.
Are those bowling shoes?
They're bowling shoes.
From what, 1962?
They're actually from the 60s.
Wow.
All my other shoes are weird.
Vintage.
Somebody bring me back the money, please.
At first I was a bit disappointed that there was no showcase, but I think the game is better for it. I feel like they've dropped that and been able to focus a bit more on the core gameplay, which has been improved.
Yeah, it was definitely a good call. I mean, there's always the danger of NBA 2K becoming a bit too bloated with features. Plus, the game still has its staples, and the online play has been made much more efficient. It's just a shame some of these goodies are hidden in teeny tiny menus.
Yeah, and I thought some of the features weren't explained very well, such as the signature moves, which I'm not really sure on how they work even now.
And I'm getting the feeling that with each new generation of this game, it's just becoming more and more sim-like, and that could be quite intimidating to newcomers, particularly because the rookie mode is still quite challenging. But luckily, they still have the option for you to go in and manually change all those little slider bars to make it a lot more forgiving for yourself.
I do like that they've incorporated a lot more basketball culture into the presentation of this game. From the customizables to snippets of music videos, it feels true to the game.
I think it's a great update with some serious depth to it, and once again it's going to battle it out with FIFA for best sports game, but slick as always. I'm giving it 9.
Yeah, look, this is the third year in a row now that it will be really the only basketball game out there, with NBA Live 13 not coming out this year. So I think even so they're pushing the boundaries of what a sports sim can do. I loved it, Hex. I'm giving it 9.5 out of 10 rubber chickens. But now it's time for some Tiny Power.
Yes! I see games as an art form capable of provoking a range of feelings like no other medium can.
So pick whichever game you want and we'll make it! But don't pick Megan's because it sounds a bit...
Hey! Screw this, I'm charging in.
Okay, you suddenly notice some frogs next to the Balrog.
Frogs?
Yep.
You know my character has a phobia of frogs.
Has she? Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yes, you do. That's why there were frogs in the tavern and the guild hall and the...
98, you go into a catatonic state. So...
That's a shame.
Look, you guys, I didn't ask for my game to be picked. Let's just make yours. I don't mind.
Really?
No.
Yeah, I mean, what do I know about game design?
Well, I didn't want to say anything, but a game about feelings?
Yeah, Ball's idea.
I mean, you know that. You know.
Right, that's it. Screw you and your frogs. We're making my game.
Okay.
Good game.
It's easy to be cynical about World of Warcraft. Many of us have horror stories where the game has taken over our life at some point, so it's natural to build negative associations to the game. I know I have. I've also spent hundreds of dollars in subscriptions and character transfers over the years, not to mention over 2,000 hours of game time. But WoW has some very important memories that I hold very close to my heart and that I treasure in a very important way. So there are a lot of emotions when considering jumping into a World of Warcraft expansion, and as I leapt into Mists of Pandaria, I found myself going through what I like to call the 5 stages of World of Warcraft expansions. Stage 1, denial. At first I found myself denying that WoW's tentacles were gripping around me and pulling me back in, and I was actually having fun. Pandas are stupid. Panda children are weird.
Someday I'm going to be a hero like you.
A giant rabbit boss in an instance is a stupid idea. I'm not enjoying these 10 kill of this quest with incredibly low drop rates like these stupid birds. I'm not enjoying the slightly more interesting questing, such as this particular scene where you play out 3 different characters' interpretations of a story.
I approached my sniper rifle.
So Kia and Kieran went off to do some girl stuff.
Come on, Kieran. Let's go do girl stuff.
But then, after a while, all those feelings I was trying to suppress rose to the surface, and I found myself embracing this world of pandas. And you can see they've tried really hard to tell a better story here.
Does he not look special? My late husband and I always wanted children. You should join our family.
And the starting area is on the back of a turtle, which is just cool. And while the first 10 levels aren't that exciting to play through, it was fun playing with the monk class, and you can see how they're trying to tell a strong story of a peaceful island that has been invaded by war.
If you don't wish to fight them, you must inspire them.
And this is enforced with lots of AI companions that accompany you on your questing.
This is a special place.
But around level 10, they throw you back out into the world, and I didn't fancy leveling up from level 10 to 85 again, so I jumped on my Goblin Rogue to experience the new content. And then I got angry. Stage 2, anger. For a start, I'm not even allowed to fly my awesome dragon, which I ground out for months and months in Cataclysm in stupid Pandaland until I hit level 90. And secondly, the leveling is slow going, and all the while it's clicking in the back of my mind that I'm now paying by the month to level very slowly. And thirdly, and I know this always happens, but all of my hard-earned Cataclysm PvE and PvP purples are now useless. They're worth nothing to me, replaced by greens in a matter of hours. And then, stage 3. Bargaining. After 5 or 6 hours, I started to bargain with myself. I'll just play a few hours and then I'll stop. I'll just reach the level cap and then I'll stop. I'll just explore this pet battle system that they've introduced, which is obviously very Pokemon, and it's quite fleshed out and quite fun. I just need to level up all of my critters and my chicken and everything and my little mini Thor. Gotta get them nice and high, and then I'll stop. I'll just transfer to a PvP server and start some fights and maybe sap and distract troll for a few hours, and then I'll stop. I don't need to get sucked in again. And then, stage 4, depression. Turns out my PvP skills aren't what they used to be, and I spent a good couple of hours getting my butt handed to me. And I spent a whole day after that just re-macroing and relearning my character, and then only to get destroyed by people with better gear than me, knowing that I'm gonna have to go and get the better gear because I need to have the best stuff, because that competitive spirit comes in, and that makes me sad, because it's a lot of time. But that PvP in WoW is just so good. I love the rock, paper, scissors system, and no other MMO has come close to getting it as good and as right. And while it is depressing not getting a point every time you level up to put into a talent tree system, the new system does force you to make some tough decisions about how you want to play your class, and I do like that. And then finally, stage 5, acceptance. I accept that even after all of these years, this is still a very good game. I accept that conceptually it's still beautiful. And you can see they've added a lot of height and depth to the areas too. Gear still looks awesome. And the story is packed with exciting and interesting moments. And I love that phasing system where the world changes around you and for all the people who have done that particular point, but for everyone else, it looks completely different. Masterful work. And it does feel like coming home again, the sound of going stealth or completing a quest, to the constant guild chatter about which particular class is overpowered or underpowered this week, and even the mouse cursor makes me feel at home. Hey little guy. Hey little guy, how are you? I haven't reached the cap yet and seen all of the content, but I think I liked Cataclysm better, at least initially. And I think that's because there's more choice now for MMOers. You can see that they've tried hard to introduce some more group-orientated quests here, where you stumble into something and see it happen. And that is good, but when you compare it to Guild Wars 2, which I think every MMOer will be doing, it just doesn't compare to a multi-staged dragon fight with 50 people. But I just love that PvP so much, and in fairness, no one dangles that carrot on a stick like World of Warcraft. But personally, I feel like this is the last push for WoW, and I'm finally ready to let it go. Just after I hit the level cap and flesh out all of my pets and all the achievements.
Good game!
When gamers awoke in Portal 1 to a glass case of emotion that was the Aperture Science laboratories, they realised very quickly this was going to be a different kind of science experiment. And they were going to need something particularly special to get them through it. It doesn't take long to realise that things aren't quite right in this top-secret underground facility. Either being guided by the soothingly creepy auto-tuned voice of GLaDOS.
It's not a fake, tragic surprise like last time. A real surprise.
Or the bumbling ramblings of Wheatley.
Don't be alarmed, all right? Although if you do feel alarmed, try to hold on to that feeling, because that is the proper reaction to being told that you've got brain damage.
There's an overwhelming sense that you're very much alone. Well, at least in terms of other humans.
Are you still there?
In the beginning, there's no real sense of scale as you're just led through a series of test chambers with no other choice but to do exactly as you're told, led on with the promise of freedom, or even better, cake. Eventually, however, you start to feel a bit like a rat in a maze, one that's being watched from anonymous windows and pesky security cameras. The chambers themselves have a stark, minimalist design about them. There's an almost hospital-grade sterility about the place, but that all starts to slowly fade away as the tiny imperfections begin to stick out like a sore thumb. Are there messages? Clues? What the hell is going on in here? This mystery was revealed much more abruptly in Portal 2, where the whole facade was stripped back to reveal the giant inner workings of this enormous and now self-aware laboratory.
Hello, and again, welcome to the Aperture Science Enrichment Center.
What was originally an eerie, creepy and deserted facility had evolved into a constantly adjusting labyrinth of moving wall panels. During both visits, it becomes apparent that things have never really gone to plan here, and that the facility is no longer being used as it was originally intended. In fact, on an unexpected trip to the very bowels of Aperture, it's revealed that each iteration of the facility has been built upon the foundations of the older labs, creating something of a living timeline as you struggle to climb out and escape this bio-bunker. Notoriously famous for its combination of claustrophobia and overwhelming scale, fear and fascination, clean-cut design and industrial madness. It all comes together to make Aperture Laboratories one of the most deviously deceptive but downright entertaining science labs we've ever had to escape from. Aperture Laboratories, a trusted friend in science.
The last time we visited the town of Torchlight, it had provided us with a much-needed top-down click-to-loot distraction until the arrival of Diablo 3. It was a great game with some great ideas, but made the fatal error of failing to include multiplayer, one of the main draw cards for dungeon crawlers. Well, thankfully all is far from well in the mining towns. We must return there once again to battle those corrupted by the Ember, and this time we can do it with friends.
Hello, Skeleton. I'll just go on ahead. Heck. Take care of things down here. Oh, cannon sucks. What have you got? Just a cat?
Come into my vortex of pain.
Hammer time.
What was that, sorry?
It's hammer time.
It's hammer time.
Hammer.
Torchlight is in more ways than you can count a Diablo clone, but it manages to carve a nice little niche for itself because it offers a similar experience but takes all the best bits from its muse and combines it with some new ideas too. It may not be as flashy or visually impressive, but it also comes at a fraction of the cost.
The game wastes little time on story. After destroying the evil beast Ordrak at the heart of the town's corruption, only his heart remained. The alchemist, one of the playable characters from the original game, can't resist the call of the ember within Ordrak's heart and is in turn corrupted as well. So a new set of heroes must set off in pursuit of this new villain who is of course making a nice mess of everything. There's a decidedly cartoonier art style here, and you may recognise the art in the cutscenes as they were produced by the makers of Shank.
There are 4 character classes to choose from. The Engineer, a kind of steampunk-inspired melee fighter with some nifty gadgets. The Outlander, a nomadic ranged cowboy-type character who uses a few basic spells. The Berserker, who uses fast attacks and animal-inspired moves and fist weapons. And finally, the Ember Mage, an elemental spellcaster.
I like that the character classes weren't your cut-and-paste run-of-the-mill classes badge, so I was forced to break from tradition and I actually went spellcaster, which I really enjoyed. The skill trees are packed with ability options, and there are countless different ways you can spec each character depending on how you want to fight. I did miss that changeable rune system from Diablo 3, which allowed you to chop and change abilities on the fly, but I still really enjoyed deciphering this system as well.
Yeah, and it promotes replayability too, because you could re-roll the same class and play it a completely different way. My Engineer was a lot of fun. His 3 tree options focused on offensive and defensive augmentations, as well as construction. And this let me do things like cannons, mines, and these little steam-powered robots that send out bursts of mana and health.
Got a little healing robot. Just gonna chill out with us for a bit.
I love the healing robot.
Heal butt.
Give me mana, little guy. My caster had fire, ice, and electricity elemental trees. I tried out all 3 and then settled on electricity, which later on in the game let me do some serious damage with lightning storms and all sorts of cool stuff. You can continuously build up the powers you have or keep adding to your abilities for a wider range of attacks, but there are also passive abilities as well, which you can choose to put points into, and I loved those. One created random events every so often in combat, like meteors or acid rain. Another would randomly teleport enemies away from me for a bit of breathing room.
It is great that you're not required to actually choose any of these if you don't want to. It does make point allocation a little bit stressful though, because it's essentially permanent. You can only respec your last 3 choices. At first there is a lot of pressure in putting in those points, but it's also nice being forced to live with the choices that you've made.
I also like that weapons aren't particularly locked to any classes too much. I mean, as a spellcaster I could still use pistols, crossbows, swords, as well as wands and staffs, of course. I did try using this cannon for a bit, but I felt a bit silly. The world is jam-packed full of enemies that are nicely varied with the occasional tough one thrown in. Some will go and grab buddies if you don't kill them fast enough, and you'll occasionally stumble upon areas that'll activate a little wave mode. But you really need to be playing this on veteran to get any sort of challenge out of it.
Yeah, what's happening to normal difficulty? Why is it so easy on normal? You can just blast through enemies with no effort at all. I hate to think what easy might be like.
Yeah, I started this on normal. When I got to the end of Act 1, I had 45 unused health potions. It is ridiculous, and to be fair, things do get a little bit trickier in Act 2, but not by much. And really, it's not till you play this on veteran that you encounter any sort of strategy in terms of what abilities to use and when.
You have perished.
Diablo was like this as well. So easy on that first playthrough. I don't know why they don't just make it challenging from the get-go. I don't replay that many games personally.
Yeah, I mean, you do pick up on the fact that it is seriously easy quite quickly, and you can change the difficulty on the fly without losing your progress simply by choosing the LAN option, because you can set the difficulty at the beginning of that. So it's not the end of the world, but I mean, it's still a strange design choice.
Normal is the new easy.
Then what's easy?
Easy, they just come up to you and say hello. The boss battles are a bit unimpressive. I mean, in fairness, they weren't that great in Diablo 2. I think the developers struggle with that top-down view and making it interesting and making each enemy not just feel like a tougher version of a normal enemy.
Yeah, I mean, at least in Diablo, though, there were more instances of environmental dangers that really kept you on your toes.
Here, there were certain occasions where the only reason I knew I was actually in a boss fight was the title at the start of the fight, letting me know I was about to take on someone important. Having said that, where a loot-driven RPG is concerned, there are elements here that just knock it out of the park.
Yes. Pets! There are a variety of different pets you can choose to be your trusty fighting partner. You'll pick up enchanted collars and pet tags to keep them tricked out, and you can fish for enchanted seafood that will give them different buffs. But arguably one of Torchlight's defining features is that you can send your pet away at any time to sell your gear for you.
Your pet runs all these errands while you keep on clicking, and better still, you can give him a little shopping list of items like mana potions or identity scrolls to bring back upon his return.
Your pet returns.
It's genius, and the trade-off is that you don't have your pet fighting by your side for that period of time, but it is worth just being a bit careful for a couple of minutes to have this in the game, and I just hate going back and having to sell things, heck, so it's so nice to have that automation in there.
Yeah, and you will be running out of bag space often because the loot chasing this game promotes is unending.
It's the Guardian.
There are rare items, everything can be enchanted with random enchantments.
You are fortunate.
Some can be slotted with gems. Like other games of its kind, the loot drops are all random, so the search for that perfect set of gear is an eternal and unending quest in itself.
There's no auction house, which some may be a little miffed about, but personally I was happy not to have the stress of it all, to be honest. There is a maniacal glee that comes over you when you get tricked out on that perfect set of gear though, isn't there?
Yes, and speaking of maniacal glee, the outpouring of gold borders on ridiculous. Occasionally I would discover hidden rooms or portals that would lead me to some separate chamber, asking me to choose between doors. And you just know behind one of those doors is going to be a nasty surprise, but I guess I picked the right one.
You are fortunate.
Wow, look at all that gold! Yeah, get it, get it, get it, get it, get it! Loot, loot, loot!
There are 3 acts to play through, and the locations are varied and beautiful, and the world has a uniqueness that sets it apart, however much we compare it to Diablo. This is very much Diablo light, but it may not have the polish or the depth of Blizzard's title, but you get a lot for what you pay for here.
Yeah, and it's great that they took the time to work on a decent multiplayer too. Just like Diablo, the difficulty is ramped up when playing with friends and automatically drops when a player leaves. Matchmaking all works well, and when you finish the game you can purchase additional dungeons with in-game gold to gain a few extra levels before attempting the whole thing again on a tougher difficulty, maybe on hardcore mode with that dreaded permadeath. What did you think, Barjo?
I loved how reactive all the animations were, and I just like these kind of games. I never think I'm going to enjoy a click 'em up, and then I get in there and I get in the zone. I wish there were more of them. This is a great sequel. I'm giving it 8 out of 10.
I thought it was such a vast improvement on the first game, and it just ticked all the right boxes for me. I had a great time. I'm giving it 9.
Good game.
So did you guess the game for this week?
Yes.
It was Star Trek Invasion from 2000. Released on the PS1, it was a space combat shooter where you played Ensign Ryan Cooper piloting a Valkyrie-class fighter. The game also featured a few voice actors from Next Gen, including Patrick Stewart and Michael Dorn.
Lieutenant Commander Worf will brief the elite of the Starfleet's pilots aboard the USS Titan.
Training will begin immediately.
It has nothing to do with any of the other games in tonight's episode, it's just space, and we like space. Coming up next week, we stroll the streets of Dunwall with Dishonored.
And we find out what happens when animals run wild in Tokyo jungle.
And a big thank you to everyone who came along and said hello at the expo on the weekend. I took some happy snaps. Hex, do you want to see?
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, that's good, I guess. Luckily, I also brought my camera along and I took some real photos.
Yeah, they weren't as good though. Well, thanks for tweeting along, tweeters. Until next week, Barjo out.
Hex out.